Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. So, Nier Reincarnation has shut down. Let's do a final total report card for the game and developers, like I sometimes do. And also we can talk about what my plans are for the game from now. First, and most importantly, I don't consider Reincarnation done. I am not fazed or demotivated by the shutdown. Or rather, I consider it done on a level close to how I consider Automata and Replicant done. You might be saying, well, we can't play Reincarnation anymore while we can still play Replicant and Automata. But like, new content is not going to be added to those console games. Furthermore, I have seen all of the endings and most side stories for those two games, so I'm not going to replay them anytime soon. Having them available and actually playing them are two different things. And some would argue that I'm not even truly playing them anyway because I was doing auto battle. If I want to revisit certain things in Replicant or Automata, to be honest, I'm going to go to YouTube, so actually all three games kind of exist in the same way to me. I will access them in the same way. I will not be quote-unquote playing them. On one of my videos where I talked about Nier Automata, I got a comment saying something like, wow, even though the game is 6 years old, we can still talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, you know, universal themes and stories about the human condition don't have a time limit. Just because Charles Dickens is dead 150 years doesn't mean his works and his messages are irrelevant now. I think because the form of media is video games, which is a fast-paced industry, and is always emphasizing the new and upcoming, and is also a business, kind of pushes people to move on quickly. And then on top of that, you have content creators where their primary goal is to grow their channel, raise engagement, make more money, and so to cover non-current stuff is not going to achieve their goals for their channels, unless it's a super popular long-running evergreen thing like Minecraft or Fortnite or Roblox or whatever. Thankfully, I don't care about growing my channel. I've said it before, but I make videos for me. I have an audience of one, myself. If my videos interest other people, that's a happy side effect. And so I can make the videos I want on topics that interest me on my schedule, and the topics that Nier games bring up are interesting to me regardless of what form they exist in, or how old they are, or whether they are receiving updates or not. I'm not motivated by trends or popularity or metrics, so viewers can be assured that my content is purely motivated by love of the game, love of the YouTube form, and love of exercising my brain. There's no guile or agenda or ulterior motive hidden under the surface. Alright, enough preamble, let's get to the grades. Battle and gameplay loops, C-. As I said in a recent video, it was adequate. It's not fair to compare a mobile game to console games, but even among other mobile games, I think Nier Reincarnation gets a C-. The gameplay loops of beating quests and gathering materials and leveling your guys are similar to most other mobile games, so that's whatever. But Battle was definitely less engaging than other mobile games. At their best moments, I would give like Monster Strike a 9, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius a 10, Uma Musume a 7.5. Nier Reincarnation often felt like a chore, it rarely felt fun. When I got things like high ranks in PvP Arena, or high scores in subjugations, or clears of the top floors of Tower, it was always a feeling of relief that it was over, rather than, that was cool, that was fun, I feel accomplished, I feel skilled. I enjoyed improving in the game or solving that puzzle, like I often felt in Monster Strike or FFBE. That's why I always thought it was so funny when people were flexing on their accomplishments in the game. Compared to even other mobile games, it's not very deep or skill-based. For that reason, if the game were not Nier, I probably would not have stuck with it to the end. That being said, within the pretty simple battle system, the developers got some depth out of it, which was impressive to see maybe the first year and a half, especially those challenge quests, those were fun. But from the 2-year mark and on, I felt the game coasted on simply raising power creep faster and faster. This is part of the reason why the game not continuing further doesn't bother me. With this aspect in mind, the game actually overstayed its welcome. It got stale, and I was feeling that staleness throughout 2023, and it didn't help that the half-assed efforts to spice up the game pretty much all failed. Recollections of Dusk updates sucked, the limited time PvP events outside of the first sucked, the Subjugations update sucked, Karma sucked, adding elements to costumes sucked, the implementation of level 100 to costumes and weapons sucked. And I can take this chance to shout out Farplane, one of the very few visible members of the global Nier Reincarnation community that did not defame me or try to suppress my voice or dissuade people from watching my coverage. His specialty was costume reviews, and I said repeatedly that I felt costume reviews were not worth my time, and I hope people didn't interpret that as an attack on him. That was my stance even before he started doing them. That was my stance even before the global version even came out. But yeah, getting back to the battle and gameplay loops grade, I recognized right away that this game was not as complex or deep as many other mobile games, so don't read into that statement too much. But yeah, a lot of visible members of the global community that focused on the mechanics and battle aspects dropped the game along the way, but Farplane stuck it out to the end, so props to him. Alright, next grade, story, world, characters, music, art direction, A+. Best I've seen in a mobile game, and better than I've seen in a lot of console games. Like the previous category, I don't think it's fair to compare mobile games with console games, but on story, Nier Reincarnation can stand up. It's a miracle that the game even exists, it's a miracle that it went as long as it did, it's a miracle that it did it on its own terms to the end, and it's a miracle Global got it from start to finish. One underrated thing that I haven't talked about recently is the menu design. With a lot of mobile games, they start to look dated and ugly even after only a couple years, but I never felt that with Nier Reincarnation. On the one hand, it's very subdued overall, so there are no flashy colors or effects to get tired of, and on the other hand, very retro-inspired, so it's kind of future-proofing itself in that way. Alright, next grade was free-to-play friendliness, A-. This was perhaps the most free-to-play friendly mobile game I've ever played. At launch, I didn't feel any pressure to put money into the game, and then at the very end, the main story was fully viewable with a brand new account 2 weeks or a month before shutdown, depending on how hard you went. And all high difficulty content, including PvP, was doable at the top levels for free-to-play accounts if they started early enough and built their accounts diligently over the years. Also, no significant supplemental stories were behind a paywall, like needing to pull a costume to unlock a story. I ding the game a point because they could have been more generous with handouts and upgrade requirements, and because the handout Recollections of Dusk costumes, which were presumably there to give free-to-play users a leg up, could not be fully maxed out and usable in PvP without getting plus scores and subjugations, which at the time were Wales-only territory for the vast majority of players. Alright, and then final grade, developer performance, B, I guess. I did a developer report card late last year, but in a nutshell, the developers get high marks for, art direction, story, and the live streams, which I have translated. I have a playlist for that. But low marks for game mode design, quick bug fixes, communication, power creep, game balance, exploitative monetization practices in the latter half of 2023. Again, if this was not Nier, it would be much less worthwhile to engage in the game. It was all worth putting up for, however, for the story, and the players who were not here for the story were lacking a big reason to stick with the game. And as I said before, we saw some big names quit at various times partway through. But yeah, that's what often happens with games that are more story-centric than gameplay-centric, which is what Nier Reincarnation was. Alright, so those are my grades for the game. I never expected to give a mobile game a 10 in story, world, characters, etc. Kotobuki was probably the closest, and I would give that an 8, and then gameplay there was like a 1.5 or 2. Almost non-gameplay. Alright, finally, we can talk about my plans for my channel post-shutdown. As I said in the beginning of the video, I do not consider Reincarnation done, and my coverage of the game done. The day-to-day stuff like news, or polls, or clears, of course, there will be no more of that. But that opens me up to do more like character analysis, or story interpretation, or bigger picture stuff like looking at the Nier series. I guess you could call it a trilogy now. We can look at common themes across the games, use the series as a lens through which to look at other topics I am interested in, like philosophy. But yeah, some ideas for videos which I put on the back burner until after Reincarnation shutdown are like fate in Nier games, sin in Nier games, religious thought in Japan and how it influences Nier story and design, nihilism, humanism, determinism, various other isms. But also, I will consider requests. The other day I got a request to do an analysis of Leon's character, and I wasn't previously thinking of doing that, but now I'm considering it. No promises, but I am considering it. Alright, so that was a bit of a look back and then a bit of a look forward. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.